Here's a little demonstration of Motion Studio's Vasco da Gama. It's just a simple introduction to what's an immensely complex program, but an immensely satisfying one to work with. So you can see when you first open up the project, I'll just go to a new project and we'll start from scratch. Your first screen shows you that you need to decide on the format, the video template you want, and there's a whole range of a really large range of possible templates going right up to 4K resolution, HD TV, Ultra HD TV, and the one I'll use here is ordinary 1920 by 1080 25p. Now here's your first presentation, which is a presentation of the globe, and you can rotate it, and we can find Melbourne down here, and we can use the mouse wheel to zoom out and see it against space. Notice that the sun position is accurately rendered here. The dark side of the earth is down here in this case. You can alter the time of day and night, and therefore you can alter the sun position or the moon position. The stars are all correctly positioned as well. And then with the mouse wheel we can zoom in right down here onto Melbourne, and you can see that it's a very, very nice representation of the planet. There's many ways you can present the maps. You go up to a series of tabs across the top here. The project details are the basic project properties. The maps give you some choices about the graphic look of the maps. The route lets you work out where you're starting, where you're going to, and where you're visiting on the way. The objects, as we'll see, include all the vehicles that you can travel in, and there's a whole range of things I'll explain about that. Texts are the kind of labels that you use and how they're displayed. The camera is where you take snapshots of particular scenes and use those to position the camera for the right view, whether you're close up to the earth or flying beside an aircraft or travelling beside a train or beside someone walking through a city. Optical effects, there's an interesting range of optical effects. They all appear over here. This is global size settings for 3D objects, images and text objects. Down here there's a navigation aid which lets you do a number of things. It firstly shows clearly here where you are on the globe, on the planet, and it also lets you reposition the map to north. See the way that swung around to north. If I move the map around or tilt it over with if you click on the left mouse, you can tilt the map right over like this very smoothly and get a nice view like that. We can come in like so, and you can see Port Phillip Bay, Western Port Bay. So let's imagine we're going to take a trip from Sydney to Los Angeles. So we'll come in here, we go right down to the bottom here, and there's a button here. You'll notice that when you touch buttons, things appear down here on the bottom line. So this one tells you what you're going to do. So all the instructions for what your buttons do appear on this bottom line down here. It's actually not at the best place. I think it would be better up on the top or somewhere closer to your line of view, but anyway, that's where it is. So this one says create the starting point of a new route, or better still, we can set the position for your start from the GPS database. Now there's almost 250,000 cities in the database, so we simply type in this case we're going to type in, let's go from Sydney to Los Angeles. So we'll go Sydney and hit return, and we get Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. We go, and there's the longitude and latitude coordinates. We go OK, and the map screams up to Sydney, and we'll now we create a point on there. There we go. That's our starting point right there. And there's a whole range of ways you can change the information displayed. For example, if I go up to maps, if we zoom out on the map, we'll go around to somewhere like India. Let's have a look at the different ways you can display the maps. We've got 15 different approaches. There's a blue marble, which looks like that. There's, for example, the classic sat, which we had before. We've got natural earth, like so. There's one called Old Paper World, which is like a pirate's map. Lovely. I can just see the sailing ships sailing around there. And then we've got one like, for example, brushed metal, which gives it a really futuristic look. Let's just see what that looks like on the big screen. So there's brushed metal, highly reflective, and looking like a kind of aluminium map. But we'll go back to a satellite view. Where are we? Classic Sat is probably my favourite one for normal use. And then you can choose country boundaries and the colour that they come up in. You can put city names on, and you can have city lights. You can also introduce your own maps if you want to, but that's a subject of a different video, which I'll talk about another time. So let's go like this. There's all the city names and the country boundaries. Let's zoom in a bit and see what we can see here. Let's see. So there's Bombay, called Bombay, not Mumbai in this case. And there's the country boundaries in red. So let's leave those in for the minute. I'll zoom back out and we'll go back and set up our first point again. I'll go back and do Sydney and hit return, and we get Sydney, New South Wales, and round we go to Sydney, and that's our starting point for our trip right there. And then you'll see it's centered on Sydney. Set a position from the GPS. So we'll go to San Francisco. And hit enter. And we go San Francisco. We're getting a whole bunch of different San Franciscos. Let's go down to the United States. Where are we? United States of America. And click OK. And we get San Francisco, California. So we'll have another point there. And there's our route to San Francisco up here. So if we just go back to the start, we can go back to here and we see there's our starting point in Sydney. I'm going to zoom in a bit on this one and take a photograph. So I've switched to manual camera and I've got my map here. I'm going to de-tilt it a bit so we can see it more clearly and zoom out a bit. And this will be my starting camera position. So there it is there. And now I'm going to go to the end of my trip and repeat this and go in here, and we'll take a snapshot there, and that's our arrival point. So I'll just go zooming in on here and we'll position this one exactly on San Francisco. And then we can maybe look at the labeling here. We'll go up to texts and we'll say point, there we go, and here's our text, show text on. San Francisco, and this now becomes a label, and we can change the size of the label in the main menu, and we can also change this to go the view. We can have face to camera, which is nice to have on so that the label sticks up out of the planet and is easy to read from a distance. I'll just go and do the same thing for Sydney. So here's Sydney, here's our text, show text on Sydney. There we go, and again we'll make it, we'll view it with facing on, and then there's a few more little adjustments we can make, but let's just see how this looks as a flight. We've got no vehicles or anything yet, but let's just try it out. We go down here to the preview and press play, and now our flight happens very nicely, very smoothly. This is just a preview, so it's not fully rendered, but it's not bad. As you can see, this is my Core i7 computer with 16 gig of RAM, so it's reasonably fast, and it's doing a pretty good job. It'll be much smoother when it's finally rendered as an HD file. So we're flying over all the islands with their names in place. You can turn those off if you want to. You can change almost anything. You can change the individual colours of the ocean or the ground, or it's all highly customizable, which is great. So we're still flying. We don't need to see the whole thing. Let's just go back and do some more. I'm going to now introduce my first, I'm going to go back to the start, and I'm going to introduce my first object, which will be our aircraft. So we go into a thing called a head object. There's a choice of things up here. Head object, we're going to make it a 3D object. We're going to select our object, and here's a whole bunch of aircraft. The choice you've got is aircraft, wild animals, Asia, Europe, North America, ships and boats, and a different set from an earlier version of Vasco da Gama, which is still quite useful, as we'll see. But let's just try an aircraft here, and we'll say we're going to fly in an Airbus 380, and let's make the appearance, make it a Qantas aircraft. And so there's our flying kangaroo all set to go on our trip. So let's take our flight now. I'm going to just change I'm going to go back to basic properties, project properties up here, and alter the duration so it takes a bit less time. I'm going to make it a faster flight, bring it back to 30 seconds, and here we go. So we'll go into our preview mode, and we'll press play, and there's our jet flying off across the ocean, much faster this time, leaving a small trail behind it to pollute the atmosphere. Always a good thing to do. And there we go, right across. Now we can alter the camera positions as we go, so we can actually match where the aircraft is and fly with it. I won't do that in this one, but that's very easy to do. And that looks like San Francisco coming up ahead. The label popping out of the water, which I can adjust, and our plane has now landed in San Francisco. So the next step is to render our project, and so we go up here to export, and we will choose from a number of video formats: AVI, QuickTime, Windows Media Video, or still images, a long series of stills, which is sometimes useful. But the best one is direct show, because it lets you go up into the very high resolution 4K resolution version. So we've got deinterlace on, which helps get rid of flickering. We've got 50% threshold and power of deinterlacing, which is good. Stereo mode is off. This will do the whole thing in 3D if you want to, which is amazingly powerful. But then we just turn this on. We go to our folder, San Fran, and we save it. And then we get the choice of full frames compressed, or all the video codecs that are on my computer, which is quite a lot. And we can choose from whichever we want. I'm going to use full frames uncompressed because it works well in Sony Vegas, which is what I normally edit in. And we just go, OK, and then we go away and have a cup of coffee while it renders. It doesn't take long to render because it's a fairly fast machine. But the end result is we'll have a lovely, high-quality, high-definition video ready to drop onto the timeline and to use in our project. So here we are, coming up to the end of our rendering process. It's only taken about 6 minutes to render that quite lengthy clip, and then we're back into the game. Now let me just explore some of the fun things in here. There's so much fun to be had in this program. Let's go back into objects, and we'll go here and have a look at some more of the wonderful objects that are available. All of the aircraft are here as grouped as Airbus aircraft, or Airbus with wheels, Boeing with wheels, other aircraft. So there's a whole bunch of the sort of light aircraft that you might find in regional areas, and as you click on each one they just appear in there, and you can choose the colour scheme again, choosing whichever airline you want to use. But there's much more. If we go up to the wild animals, we can choose them by region, so we can choose Antarctic animals. Here's a blue whale sitting beached on the beach in Sydney. If we go to high mountains, we can find an Andean condor flying over Sydney, or we can have a gorilla, a mountain gorilla, and so it goes. You can go to all the different areas, and so there's desert animals, all sorts of things. And we can go to the tropical sea, and so there's fish. There's Nemo, has found his way to Sydney. Another Nemo here. Lots of little sea creatures, turtles, whales, jellyfish, I mean, really, they've had so much fun putting this. There's a giant squid, very giant squid, in fact. Um, there's wild animals. There's ships and boats. Now, these are all official craft. They're all cruise vessels, in this case, pleasure boats. But there's cargo ships, ferry boats, eccentrics. What are eccentrics, I wonder? Let's have a look at those. Oh, these are some strange vessels. That's a very odd looking one. They're listed here by manufacturer and class. There's sailboats. There's all the different cruise lines around the world are put here. There's the Costa, and I won't go in and, well, yes, I will. There's the Costa Concordia, which obviously no longer sails. It's now being broken up for scrap, but it's still here in the database. So you can see the database is huge. If we go back to, if we go back to the Vasco da Gama set, and we look at, for example, persons und pets. There's little bits of German sneaking through from time to time. But so here's someone pedaling a bicycle. Here's the little motorbike that I like. Here's someone hiking their way around. And depending on the scale of the way you size these things, you can actually have them walking along real streets in a city. I love this little guy. Here's a scuba diver swimming his way along, looking at goodness knows what. But you can see they've had a lot of fun putting all these 3D animations together, and they're actually quite reasonable, and they can spark up your little home video, and maybe even a professional one, rather well. Even a horse, which walks not too badly. A jockey, horse and jockey, and so on. Persons and pets, miscellaneous, all sorts of markers, a pointing hand, and so on. Buildings are great. There's a massive database of buildings in this, which is not in this particular group, but in a later video I'll show you how you can populate cities with up to 5,000 buildings each, all placed in exactly the right place according to their GPS coordinates. So there's wonderful possibilities here for making quite realistic looking cities very, very easily. Other vehicles, oh, here's some fun. We've got a gondola. You can have a gondola going across the mountains, or a ski lift. You've got a Billy Connolly style motor trike, or a quad bike. They've had some really good fun. Oh, there's just a pair of boots that walk by themselves. No end of fun. So, as you can see, you can very simply set up a very interesting and totally customizable map of your various journeys, including what I haven't done here. You can include stopover points, places where you pause for a period of time. You can then switch back to real video of the place that you're looking at, and then get in another plane or a bus or a truck and drive on to the next waypoint on your journey.